Hey, welcome back to Call the Damn Leads, the show by sales professionals for sales professionals. I'm your host, Drewbie Wilson. With more than 2 decades in sales, I've seen it, been through it, heard about it. Now I'm bringing it to you, my favorite people in the world, the sales community. Let's be honest, this is the greatest job on earth. Doesn't matter where you come from, what background, what personality type, you can make an amazing life in sales. Today's episode's just me. We're talking about lead stages. What are they? Why are they important? Who cares? Well, you should, because every lead that you get, every lead that you should be calling the damn thing, it goes through different stages. And if you read my book, you'll read a portion of it where I talk about these stages, but I know not everybody's going to read, so I figured why not do a podcast episode that maybe you'll take this information and implement it in your business. Because here's what I know: when you get organized, you get more done. It's the funniest thing. I was having this conversation with my son the other day. He was building on a Lego set, and I said, hey man, why don't we move all of the same color pieces into a pile? And then even in those little piles, let's organize them into the different shapes so that it's easier to find them as we're working through the instruction booklet. And it's funny how life imitates sales, imitates art, imitates whatever you want to call it, because as I started thinking about today's episode, that's exactly what lead stages is. That's what they are. It's helping to organize your leads into different piles so that you can be more intentional as you work them through your sales process. So what are the lead stages? There's a couple of them. Number one is new leads. Kind of makes sense, but anyone who's just come in the door that you've gotten their information and a reference of contact. So if you have their name and a phone number, that's a lead. If you have their name and their email address, that's a lead. If you just have their email address, that could potentially be a lead. But be honest with you, with the Can Spam Act and all the one-to-one rules, I mean, realistically, you should have name, phone, email, or name, phone, name, email at a minimum. Or if you're using social media, it could be their profile. Literally, you can go to someone's Facebook profile, you can message them back and forth, and that is a direct form of contact. That's a contact point. You could be Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter. If you have their social media profile and you're creating a direct message between the two of you, that's a contact point. Therefore, that's a new lead. So new leads live in the first category, the first stage, if you will, and they stay there until you've had communication and actually had a serious conversation with them. And what I mean by that is you've connected, confirmed the information is accurate for as far as the contact point. You've confirmed their interest level of some fashion that says, hey, yes, they actually did want to know more or have a conversation with you in which you've gone through your pre-qualifying questions and then work to either disqualify them or make them an offer. During that new lead stage, I think that first 30 days is important. And so for me, all new leads go through a 30-day cycle, and you can learn more about that in the Call the Damn Leads book, or go back to some of the other episodes where I talk about the sales and follow-up process for the first 30 days. But that is the new leads stage. All new leads go there until such time as we've had a good conversation, or I've moved them through the 30-day follow-up process with no response. We're going to hold on to those leads, and I'm going to move them to another stage here in just a second. But I want to talk about those leads that we did have a conversation with, that we built rapport. We worked through the pre-qualifying questions, because you and I both know that not all business is good business. So it's essential that you have your avatar dialed in so you know who you're speaking to and why. That you have your script and pre-qualifying questions built so you know what you're saying during every one of these conversations. And so that you can determine whether or not they're a good fit to work together with you, or if you even have a product or service that can help them solve their problem. So if you've had that conversation, you've pre-qualified the business, you've made them an offer, but you didn't close, don't worry. Statistically, most people have somewhere between a 20 and 30% close rate, depending on the industry. Some could be as high as 50 or 60, depending on if it's, a one-to-one. But I typically find that overall, if you're in the 20, 30% close rate, you're doing pretty dang good. We can always improve. That's why you're here. But that means that you're still going to have a lot of leads that don't close right away, which means they need to move into the next stage of the process, the hot leads category. Hot leads. Everybody, hot leads in your area. What that means is that you've established need, you've built rapport, you've made an offer, and now you're going through the stage of securing the bag. You got to get paid. You got to get them to sign on the line. You got to get them to fill out the invoice, whatever that process is for you and your business. The hot lead stage is for following up with those people who are right on the edge, who are right there just about ready. And you're going through probably one of three main objections, which is they got to come up with the money to pay for it. They need time to get things actually implemented, right? They have to time it out right as far as when it can actually be done. Or they're speaking to a spouse or a decision maker. Those are the top three objections. Yeah, you might have other little ones along the way, but it's really about money, time, decision. That's it. And so as they're in that hot lead stage, we need to make sure we're following up with them consistently. Not so much that we're overbearing or spammy or pushy, but enough that we're staying top of mind so that if and when they're ready to make that decision, we're the one they want to make it with. Because I'm sure if you're here listening to this today, you've been in a position where you built amazing rapport, you had a conversation with someone, and they were in your CRM, and you thought on a Friday, like, I'll call them on a Monday. And by Monday when you call, they went ahead and signed with someone else. Enter the death scenes and all the sad parts. That's the truth. I've been there. I can say with 100% certainty that has happened to me on more than one occasion. That's why Call the Damn Leads exists, because ultimately it's the choice that you make whether or not you're going to do the thing, whether you're going to make the call. And hot lead stage is for that. By the end of every day, you should be going through your hot leads and making sure you've reached out to every single one of them or have established the next timeline for contact so that you can secure the bag and get paid. I cannot, you have to do this. Have a category or a hit list or something, a hot lead stage where you can go through and look at them every single day and be focused on getting those deals done. Now, sometimes a deal's going to take a little time. You might be in, an industry like real estate or mortgages or insurance or, even general contracting sometimes. Everyone has a different buying cycle. Some of us, it could be right away. For some of you, it could be a 60 to 90 day cycle from the day that you have your first conversation to the day that the check is ringing through and everything is completed. So that warm leads stage is very important because that's the real time that you continue to educate and entertain. If they're dealing with one of those three main objections, time, value, decision, this is your time to shine. This is where you show up and you continue to help educate the consumer on what's going to be the best course of action for them to establish the result that they were looking for originally. Now, this is something that I think a lot of people kind of are hit or miss on, to be honest, because this is where the nurturing really happens. This is where the top of mind, where you drop the seed in the soil, and it takes months and months and months, and then one day you get a call that, hey, the thing is ready. It's time for harvest, because they're reaching out and saying, you know what? I've done all the things. I've been following your email advice, and now I'm ready to take action. Can we get this done? But again, if you're not the one following up, if you're not the one creating that consistent relationship and letting them know that you're there for them when they're ready to make the decision, you could be missing out on a lot of opportunity because you're not staying active in the warm leads stage, right? They're warm. Don't let them go cold, because if they go cold, then someone else might walk by and snatch them up and throw them in the microwave and in 30 seconds be able to get the thing that took you months and months and months to develop. And you don't want that to happen. You don't want somebody to walk by and snatch your deal off the shelf and toss it in the microwave and get paid. That's your lunch. I know it was kind of a silly analogy, but that's the truth. The warm lead stage is super important. So as you're continuing to work them, I like to keep my leads in the warm lead stage for about 90 days to 6 months. After 6 months, if you haven't decided to do business with me, I mean, I'm still going to stay reaching out to you, but it's going to be much, much less often. Because ultimately, I can only do so much, and you have to be willing to make the decision to take the next step. And also, I still want to be there when you're ready to do so. I've had clients literally show up 3 years after my first time communicating with them, walk in the door and say, hey man, guess what? It's time to work. Can you help me? And I tell you what, those are some of the funnest nights because you get to celebrate that harvest of so many years and effort put in now coming back to you and establishing that the work you did today is going to pay off, whether you realize it or not. At some point in the future, it's going to work. And so that cold leads stage is ultimately where you take people to hang out and hope that at some point, somewhere in the future, the sun shines through and you're able to see something sprout and continue to build from it. However, what's interesting and what I try to do in my own business on a weekly basis is set aside 1 hour per week to call the cold leads. I had a mentor. He used to tell me there's old in the cold or there's gold in the cold. And I was like, what does that mean? And he's like, listen, man, those people that have been in there a long time, they've been struggling with these issues. They've been dealing with this problem long enough that they may be ready to take action and do something about it. And it could just so happen that you calling them that day was the catalyst for them to make the decision that they'd known they needed to make. So is it worth it for you to invest a little bit of time trying to find a diamond in the rough? Well, I tell you what, the cold lead stage is a perfect place to do that. And if you carve out an hour every week to just reach out and try to reestablish a relationship, you'll be pleasantly surprised at what you're able to pull out of that list. So make sure you have your cold lead stage in line. And the final stage, one that I think gets overlooked a little bit, your current customers. Don't forget about the people that have already paid you, the ones that have already trusted you, handed you their money. What else do they need? Are there other products and services? Is there repeat need for your product that they could potentially want to hear from you and say, hey, we have an offer, we have an opportunity, here's a thing that you could probably be doing? What about referrals? You ever thought about having a campaign where you're literally just calling and trying to get referrals from your current list of clients that you've already done a great job for? I have one client in particular. We were having this conversation, and it was so funny because he's like, we were talking about the different deals, and things felt a little bit slow. And I thought, well, what's your average deal size? He said $25,000. And I was like, all right, well, that's cool. And I was like, and how many clients do you have that you've done work for over the last 5 to 10 years? And he says, I don't know, probably around 5,000. And I said, would it be possible? Just hear me out. Would it be crazily possible that if you hired someone whose only job was to call 50 of those past clients a day and just ask if they needed any updates on their home, that it could potentially turn into a remodel or some opportunity? And he said, well, I mean, yeah, I guess that kind of makes sense. And he went and hired someone, and that's what they did. And they've made a silly amount of sales by simply establishing a specific customer stage where they call and check in and ask for referrals or for cross sales. And they make a lot of money in the countertop business. And so this is my reminder for you that if you have clients who have already paid you and trusted you with their products and services or needs, why not call them and ask them for referrals too? Don't forget about that stage of the process, because once you've got their money doesn't mean that they're gone forever. It just means that the relationship has changed and it's in a different stage to which you now need to proceed with a different process. Hopefully this has been helpful for you guys. I know it sounds a little bit crazy, but when you start segmenting these things down and you break them into the different stages and you have a real process for each stage, I promise you that you're going to feel way, way more confident, and you're going to know that when you show up and you start work every day, you have a system and a process that's going to allow you to get things done faster, which means that you can do more, which means that ultimately the more calls you make, the more sales you make, the more help you get to provide, which means you're going to make more money. And if that's your goal, I hope the lead stages process is one little thing that you're able to go and implement today and see some massive success with. And if you do, I want to hear about it. First of all, share this episode. If you thought this was good and you got some value out of it, share it on social media, tag @CallTheDamnLeads. Let me know because I want to see if this is helping you. And then head over to callthedamnleads.com/podcast. Send me some information. Tell me how you implemented this in your business, and let's get on here and tell your story about what Lead Stages has done for you and for your business. In the meantime, you guys know what to do. Go call the damn leads. We'll see you on the next one.